My name is Nellie, and for as long as I can remember, I've always been in the shadows of my family. Growing up, the focus was always on my younger sister, Emma, the golden child, the perfect one, the one who could do no wrong. She was the daughter my parents had always wished for. And then there was me, the awkward one, the quiet girl who preferred solving equations to attending social gatherings. I wasn't unhappy with my love for learning, but in a family where charm mattered more than intellect, I often felt invisible. I'll never forget a family barbecue when I was 12 and Emma was 10. I had just won a regional spelling bee and couldn't wait to share the news. "Mom, Dad, look what I won," I exclaimed, holding up my certificate. I won the spelling bee. My mother barely glanced at me before turning her attention back to Emma, who was flipping around on the grass. "That's nice, dear," she said absent-mindedly. "Emma, sweetie, be careful. You don't want to get grass stains on your new dress." I stood there, my certificate crumpled in my hand, watching as the family fawned over Emma's acrobatics. No one seemed to care about my achievement. It was clear to me then that Emma was the one they adored. Emma got brand new clothes while I wore hand-me-downs. Emma went to dance lessons, and I got library cards. Emma received compliments and attention, while I became used to disappointment. As the years went by, the trend continued. Emma grew into a stunning teenager, popular, outgoing, full of life. Meanwhile, I retreated into my studies, finding comfort in a world where skill mattered more than popularity. "Nellie, why can't you be more like your sister?" was a constant refrain in our home, usually followed by, "Emma, darling, you're perfect just as you are." I tried not to let it bother me. I told myself that one day, my hard work and brains would prove my worth. When high school came around, I threw myself into my academics with renewed dedication. I was determined to achieve something so remarkable that even my parents couldn't overlook me, but it felt like I was constantly fighting against Emma's magnetic popularity. During my junior year, I achieved what I thought would be the pinnacle of my academic success. I won the state math competition. It had been a tough contest, pitting the brightest minds against one another in a battle of logic and numbers. When they announced my name as the winner, I felt a rush of pride and hope. This was it, I thought. Finally, I had done something that was truly extraordinary. I couldn't wait to get home and tell my family. Holding the trophy tightly, I burst through the front door, eager to share my success. But as always, there they were, my parents surrounded by Emma, who was busy modeling a new outfit. "Mom, Dad, guess what?" I said, breathless. I won the state math competition. My mother barely looked up from admiring Emma. "Oh, that's nice, sweetie. Emma, darling, turn around and let me see how it fits from behind." My father didn't even acknowledge me, his attention fully on adjusting Emma's dress. "Good job, Nellie," he muttered. "Emma, are you sure this dress isn't too tight around the shoulders?" I stood there, trophy in hand, feeling deflated. "But it's the state competition. I beat out hundreds of students," I tried to explain. "That's great, honey," my mother said absent-mindedly. "We need to focus on Emma's upcoming performance this weekend." Just like that, my achievement was overshadowed by Emma's latest endeavor. I retreated to my room, placing the trophy on my desk, where it quickly gathered dust, forgotten by everyone except me. When it came time for college applications, I threw myself into every essay, every form. I was determined to get into the best university to prove my worth once and for all. The day the acceptance letters arrived was a day I'll never forget. I had been accepted to a prestigious school with a full scholarship to study financial analysis. My hands trembled as I read the letter, tears of joy streaming down my face. I found my parents in the living room, Emma sprawled on the couch between them. "I got in," I said, my voice shaking. "Full scholarship to study financial analysis at—" "Oh my God," Emma suddenly shouted, jumping off the couch. "I need a new costume for my performance next week." Once again, the spotlight shifted. My parents rushed to gather their things. I stood there, holding my acceptance letter in my hand, listening to the car pull out of the driveway. It didn't return until late that night, carrying bags full of Emma's new clothes and accessories. My achievement was never mentioned again. As I threw myself into my studies at university, Emma's life took a different direction. She enrolled in the local community college, more focused on her social life than academics. Not long after, she started dating John, her high school boyfriend. Meanwhile, I immersed myself in the world of financial analysis, finding purpose and validation that had always eluded me. For the first time, my intelligence and hard work were recognized. I made a few close friends who shared my passion, and it felt like I had finally found where I belonged. Back home, Emma's life unfolded just as our parents had always envisioned. She married John Wright in a grand ceremony, the event lavish with gifts and attention. I was there, standing as a bridesmaid, once again feeling like an outsider in my own family. A year later, Emma announced she was pregnant. The birth of her child was treated like the most monumental event in our family's history. My parents were ecstatic. "We're grandparents," my father exclaimed, tears in his eyes. "Can you believe it, Nellie? Aren't you thrilled to be an aunt?" I was happy for Emma, truly, but the sting of being overshadowed again lingered. I had just landed a position at one of the city's top financial firms. But in the face of Emma's new motherhood, it felt insignificant. When Anthony was born 2 years later, the cycle repeated. Emma was the perfect daughter with the perfect family, and I was just Nellie, the workaholic, the single one, the one who hadn't given them grandchildren to adore. By the time I was 30, I had risen to the position of senior financial analyst. I was respected by my colleagues, sought after by clients, and for the first time, I felt like I had earned a sense of self-worth. To celebrate, I bought myself a house, a beautiful 4-bedroom home in a great neighborhood. It wasn't a mansion, but it was mine, bought with my own hard-earned money. The day I got the keys, I felt a pride and sense of accomplishment I had never known before. I invited my family over to see my new place, hoping they would finally recognize my achievements. They arrived, Emma and her kids, my parents doting on their grandchildren while I gave them a tour of my home. My mother's first comment was, "It's such a big house for just one person, isn't it?" My heart sank. "It's an investment," I explained, "and I have space for a home office now." "Well, I suppose that makes sense," my father said, but his tone suggested he didn't think it did. "Emma, honey, make sure Lily doesn't touch anything. We don't want to break Aunt Nellie's things." As they departed, I overheard my mother telling Emma, "It's unfortunate Nellie doesn't have a family to fill that big house. But I guess her career is her priority." A few months after I had settled into my new home, I received an unexpected invite for a family dinner. I was taken aback. My family usually overlooked me, considering me odd and unremarkable. Still, I accepted, hoping it might signify a shift in dynamics. "Nellie, glad you could make it," my father said, awkwardly patting my shoulder. "Please sit down. We need to discuss something important." A tightness gripped my stomach. In this family, important discussions usually meant Emma would get the good news while I was left with something disappointing. Nevertheless, I took a seat, forcing a smile. We dined while the conversation centered on Emma's children and John's work. I tried to bring up a recent professional achievement, but my words were drowned out by Anthony's cries for dessert. Later, while we lounged in the living room, my mother cleared her throat. "Nellie, sweetheart, we've been discussing something." I steeled myself, unsure what was coming next. "You're single, without kids," she continued, as though discussing a serious ailment, "and that big house of yours is just sitting empty." "Yes," I replied slowly, not liking where this was heading. My father chimed in, "We think it would be best if you gave your house to Emma and her family." I blinked, sure I had misheard. "Pardon me. What?" "Just hand over the keys and move out," my mother said nonchalantly, as if asking for the salt. "They need the space more than you do." I looked around, waiting for someone to break into laughter, to reveal this was all a joke. But no one did. Emma sat smugly, while John gave her a condescending pat on the shoulder. "You're kidding, right?" I stammered. "No, Nellie," my mother said, her voice dripping with condescension. "Don't be selfish. Emma needs space. You're just one person. It's your duty as a sister." My father added, almost as a final word, "Family helps family." I felt like I had stepped into a warped version of reality. "But it's my house," I nearly whispered. "I bought it with my own money. I worked hard for it." "Oh, come on, Nellie," Emma interjected sweetly. "You know how tough it is raising 2 kids in our cramped apartment. You'd be doing us such a favor." I stood, my hand trembling. "No," I said firmly. "Absolutely not. I'm not giving you my house." The room erupted. My parents listed all their supposed sacrifices for me. Emma lamented her struggles with the kids. John nodded along as if this whole charade was perfectly reasonable. As I left, I heard my mother shout after me, "Think about it, Nellie. Don't be so selfish." In the following days, my life became a circus of unwanted attention. It seemed my parents had spread the story of my selfishness far and wide within our extended family. Suddenly, relatives I hadn't spoken to in ages became experts on my life, calling and texting relentlessly. One afternoon, I received a call from my great-aunt, a woman I hadn't seen since my teen years. "Nellie," she croaked, her voice raspy, "I heard what happened. How could you be so cruel? You're just an old maid, hoarding money for no reason." The next day, my cousin Mike, whom I barely knew, texted me, "Hey Nellie, heard you're being difficult. Why don't you move to a deserted island and live alone? You're already a loner anyway." 2 weeks after that disastrous dinner, I was at home, nursing a bad cold. Wrapped in a blanket, sipping hot tea, I heard an odd sound at my front door. A clear noise of someone struggling with a lock. My heart raced. Was someone trying to break in? I silently placed my tea down and crept toward the door, my legs shaking. I peered through the peephole, barely containing a gasp. There stood my sister, my parents, and John. Emma was kneeling at the lock with a hairpin, while my parents looked on. John stood farther back, looking uneasy. Without thinking, I yanked the door open. They all jumped, startled. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I demanded, my voice hoarse from my cold but filled with fury. They stared at me, caught in the act. Then, shockingly, my mother spoke. "We thought you'd be at work. We were just going to move in." "Move in?" I repeated, disbelieving. "You mean break in and squat in my house?" "Nellie," my father interrupted, "we knew you wouldn't call the police on us. We're family after all." I glanced past them and noticed a car parked in my driveway, loaded with boxes and suitcases. They had actually planned this behind my back. "Get off my property," I ordered, my voice low and threatening. "Now or I will call the police." I pulled out my phone and dialed 911, holding it up so they could see. "Last warning," I said. "Leave now." They stared at me, faces filled with disbelief. Slowly, they began to retreat. I watched them drive off, my whole body shaking. Once they were gone, I closed the door, locked it, and slid down to the floor, my back pressed against the solid wood. The next day, I hired a security company and had cameras installed around the perimeter of my property, complete with voice recording. But technology wasn't enough. I had always wanted a dog, and now I had the perfect reason to get one. I went to the local animal shelter, determined to find a companion who could also protect me. That's when I met Max, a large mixed-breed dog with sharp eyes and a guarded demeanor. The shelter worker told me his story. He'd been abandoned for being too protective. I saw through his rough exterior and recognized the loyal, loving dog beneath. Max and I connected instantly. At home, he was affectionate and gentle, always by my side. But when strangers came near, he transformed into a vigilant protector, his deep bark a warning to anyone considering trespassing. I set up a cozy kennel in the backyard for him, and he seemed to love it, often lounging in the sun or patrolling the yard. For 2 months, life was peaceful, but then a work emergency took me out of town for the weekend. I reluctantly left Max in the care of my neighbor, Mrs. Johnson, who adored him and often took him for walks. But on the second night of my trip, my phone rang. It was Mrs. Johnson, frantic. "Nellie dear, something happened," she said, trembling. "Max, he bit a stranger, chased them right out of the yard, and now the police are here." I caught the first flight home, my mind racing. When I arrived, I was met with a nightmare. My parents' car was parked outside. Emma was there looking smug, and 2 police officers stood in my driveway. I approached carefully, trying to assess the situation. "What's happening here?" One of the officers stepped forward. "Ma'am, we've received a complaint about your dog attacking someone. Can you explain what happened?" Before I could answer, Emma interrupted. "Her monstrous dog attacked my husband. It jumped over the fence and bit him. He could have died." That's when everything clicked. The bite, it had been John. "That's not true," I said firmly. "My dog was just protecting my property. If your husband got bit, it's because he was trying to break in." Emma's face turned an angry shade of red. "Liar, put that beast down before it attacks someone else." My parents, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke up. "We're pressing charges," my father declared, a glint of satisfaction in his eyes. "You'll be paying for John's medical bills." The officer glanced between us, sensing the tension. "Ma'am, due to the complaint, we'll have to take your dog for evaluation. If he's deemed dangerous, he might have to be euthanized." My heart sank as I watched animal control load Max into their van. He gave me a confused, sorrowful look, and I could feel my own eyes well up. As they drove away, my mother leaned in close. "You know, Nellie, all of this could have been avoided if you had just given us the house. It's not too late. Give it to us, and we'll drop the charges. Otherwise, well, you know what happens to aggressive dogs." Standing in my driveway, watching my family leave with smirks on their faces, a sudden realization hit me like a lightning bolt. The security cameras. I rushed inside, my pulse racing. My hands were unsteady as I booted up my laptop and accessed the security footage from the previous night. As the video began, I held my breath, hoping the cameras had caught what I needed. The footage was crystal clear. I watched as Emma and John snuck up to my front door, glancing over their shoulders. Max appeared on screen, his fur bristling, a low growl coming from him. Then Emma's voice rang out clearly. "John, kick the dog. When it bites, we can blame Nellie and demand compensation. Or better yet, we can get the house in exchange for its life." My stomach turned as I saw John viciously kick Max. The dog, taken by surprise, bit down on John's leg in defense. Emma screamed, causing Max to immediately release his grip. They fled, leaving Max standing there, bewildered and distressed. The next morning, I called my parents. Keeping my voice calm, I said, "We need to talk. Can you all come over?" There was a pause on the line, then my mother's syrupy sweet voice replied, "Of course, dear, we'll be right there." An hour later, they arrived, my parents, Emma, and John, his leg wrapped in a bandage. They walked into my living room, and I could see the gleam of triumph in their eyes. They thought they had won. Emma immediately began pointing at various things in the room. "We'll need to get rid of this ugly lamp," she remarked with disdain. "And this couch won't do. We'll replace it with something more suitable for the family." I held my tongue and let her continue her presumptuous tour of my home. Finally, I cleared my throat. "Before we go any further," I said, my voice calm but filled with quiet fury, "I think you should watch something." I motioned to the large TV on the wall. "Please have a seat. All of you." They exchanged confused glances, but they sat down. Emma perched on the armrest, her face already showing signs of irritation. As the security footage played, I watched as the color drained from their faces. Their expressions shifted from confusion to shock to horror as they realized their plot had been exposed. Emma broke the silence first. It was just a prank," she stammered, her voice filled with panic. "We didn't mean any harm." John nodded, grimacing as he shifted his injured leg. "Yeah, just a joke that got out of hand. No need to make a big deal out of this, right?" But my parents seemed to understand the severity of the situation. My father leaned forward, his face pale. "Nellie, sweetheart, let's not be rash. There's no need to go public with this. We can settle this within the family." I smiled coldly, a humorless grin that made them all recoil. "It's a little too late for that, don't you think?" I glanced at my watch. "And speaking of late, I believe we have some visitors." As if on cue, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to reveal 2 police officers I had called earlier that morning. "Perfect timing," I said, ushering them inside. "Officers, I have evidence of an attempted break-in and extortion." I quickly explained the situation to the officers and showed them the incriminating footage. They listened carefully and then moved to arrest Emma and John. As they read them their rights, my parents broke down in tears. "Nellie, please," my mother cried, clutching her chest. "Don't do this, we're family." I felt a twinge of guilt, but it was swiftly overridden by years of hurt and betrayal. "You should have thought of that before you tried to steal my home and hurt my dog," I said coldly. "It's time for you to go." They left, weeping, as Emma and John were escorted to the police car. Later that day, I went to the animal shelter to bring Max home. When he saw me, he wagged his tail furiously, his joy evident as he showered me with kisses. "Let's go home, buddy," I whispered, holding him close. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Emma and John were arrested, and the evidence from my security cameras was irrefutable. They were convicted of attempted break-and-enter and blackmail, slapped with a hefty fine that was awarded to me, and given suspended sentences. I decided to cut ties with my immediate family, but I felt it was important to tell the rest of the family the truth. I sent out a detailed account of everything, along with copies of the footage, to all our extended relatives. The response was overwhelming. Aunts, uncles, and cousins who had once criticized me now sent messages of support and apologies. My parents, Emma and John, were ostracized, their actions deemed unforgivable by even the most understanding relatives. As for me, life improved dramatically. I excelled in my career, finding fulfillment and satisfaction. Max and I settled into a peaceful routine, enjoying walks in the nearby park. It was on one of these walks that I met Greg, a kind-hearted software engineer with a golden retriever named Luna. We clicked instantly, bonding over our love for dogs and our shared experiences with difficult families. We exchanged numbers and began dating, our relationship growing stronger with every passing day. Thanks for watching, stay stunned, and I'll see you again in the next video.